there's an article rocketing around the internet. It was from New York Magazine. The cover of New York Magazine featured a quote-unquote trans man, meaning a biological woman who believes that she is a man, whose new name is Gabrielle Mack. Okay, Gabriel Mack. The original name of this human was, in fact, Mac McClellan. But then this woman decided that she is, in fact, some sort of trans man and therefore had to appear on the cover of New York Magazine in her underwear. I say her because I only use biological pronouns on this show. In her underwear, after having a breast removal surgery and after having had a surgery to essentially carve a fake penis out of her leg and then attach it to herself. This is what our society has become. In one photo, this is what our society has become. When radical subjectivism rules the roost and reality is forced to bow before the altar of radical subjectivism, what you end up with is effectively bodily mutilation. There's no way to look at this photo and not see a form of bodily mutilation. This is literally a person who has had flesh from her leg removed in order to carve out a fake genitalia and then say that she has now become a man. By the way, this person also says that she has retained her original female genitals in terms of her vagina. So she still has a biological vagina and now has added on a fake penis through a phalloplasty. And I say fake penis because this is not a naturally grown thing, shall we say. It is carved out of human flesh. Okay. Now, I don't mean to be extremely graphic, but that's the entire point of the article. The entire point of the article from New York Magazine is to be as extremely graphic as possible, which is why the photo is on the cover of New York Magazine. And it's why you have extremely graphic photos of what the leg looks like after the removal of the flesh. And you are supposed to just mirror the perspective of the article. You're supposed to mirror the idea that this person used to be a woman and is now a man. So over the weekend, I was rereading 1984. And the truth is that 1984, while it is a morality play about the Stalin-esque Soviet regime, in reality, it's a little bit deeper than that. What it really is about how you control minds. It's about thought crime and doublethink and mind control. And it's how people's minds are captured and then used against them. And this is what we are in the midst of culturally in the United States. You are not allowed the few centimeters in your brain that allow you a level of thought freedom. That would be to commit a thought crime. If you right now are thinking that this person obviously suffers from a mental disorder, and I will bring you more information about this person in just a moment, that this person obviously suffers from a mental disorder and that brutal surgeries are very unlikely to represent a solution to that mental disorder. If you think that, then this means that you are a vicious, terrible person. You are transphobic, you are heteronormative, you're cishet, right? All of this nonsense. So Orwell writes in 1984, and this is really the essence of 1984, says, doublethink lies at the very heart of the regime, since the essential act of the party is to use conscious deception while retaining the firmness of purpose that goes with complete honesty, to tell deliberate lies while genuinely believing in them, to forget any fact that has become inconvenient, and then, when it becomes necessary again, to draw it back from oblivion for just so long as it is needed, to deny the existence of objective reality, and all the while to take account of the reality which one denies. All this is indispensably necessary. This is correct. Okay, this is the culture that we have now been creating for ourselves. Orwell, writing about this in the context of Soviet mind control, essentially, he says, in the end, the party would announce that 2 and 2 made 5. And you would have to believe it. It was inevitable that they should make that claim sooner or later. The logic of their position demanded it. Not merely the validity of experience, but the very existence of external reality was tacitly denied by their philosophy. The heresy of heresies was common sense. And what was terrifying was not that they would kill you for thinking otherwise, but that they might be right. For after all, how do we know that 2 and 2 make 4? Or that the force of gravity works? Or that the past is unchangeable? If both the past and the external world exist only in the mind, and if the mind itself is controllable, what then? In order to reach utopia, you wonder why this is part of a left-wing agenda. Because really, what does this have to do with redistribution of income, per se? What does this have to do with the structures of the economy? What does this have to do, even with fairness and equity? What does it have to do with any of this stuff? What do bizarre claims about the nature of gender that are completely anti-biological and anti-common sense, what does that have to do with any of this? And the answer is, it all lies in the root belief that man is entirely malleable and that reality exists entirely in the mind. So if we just shift how we think about reality, a man can be a woman can be a man. All human beings can be remolded and shaped into utopian forms of themselves, widgets that we can play with from the top down to create a better society. That is how this particularly bizarre and radical perspective on gender fits into the broader left-wing rubric. Because once you have subjected yourself to relentless subjectivism, once you have decided that radical subjectivism is the truth about life, that reality does not exist out here, there's no such thing as reality, there are no such things as rules. Rules of biology do not exist, rules of physics do not exist, rules of history do not, nothing exists. The only thing that exists is in your mind, and that's the only thing that matters because it grants you a sense of authenticity. Once you believe that, you can accomplish anything in this view. That is why this is important. Not because this particular person doing what this person wishes to do with their life. I disagree with the decisions. I don't think this is going to alleviate anything. I think the surgeons who perform these sorts of surgeries are committing a grave sin against humanity, frankly. But adults are adults in a free country. Hey, that said, the baseline notion that the rest of society has to accept as truth something that is obviously a lie is extraordinarily dangerous, and it ties into a broader belief system that says that lies can become the truth so long as those lies are convenient and necessary for the pursuit of utopia. We'll get to more on this matter in just 1 second. First, it's time for you to get the respect you so richly deserve via established titles. This is your opportunity to earn the title of Lord or Lady and gain the respect you deserve. All you need is 1 square foot plot of land in Scotland. Established Titles is a project based on a historic Scottish custom where landowners are referred to as lairds, or lords and ladies in English. In your title pack, you will receive at least 1 square foot of dedicated land on a private estate and an official certificate with a crest. Your certificate will include a unique plot number with which you can see the exact location of your land. And as we are approaching Christmas, I should also mention, this is a great last-minute gift, like the best last-minute gift. The way to surprise your loved ones, from girlfriends, boyfriends, to family. You could even get a couple pack for you and your partner where you can get adjoining plots of land. With the certificate, you can even officially change your name to Lord or Lady and get it put on your credit card or on your plane tickets or pretty much anything else. Don't just pick your pronouns. Become an actual Lord or Lady today with Established Titles. They're having a great limited time sale, so go to establishedtitles.com/Ben Shapiro to save 10% off today. Remember to use the discount code Ben Shapiro or just click the link below. That's establishedtitles.com/Ben Shapiro or just click on that link below. Before we get to the story, the details of the story, I just want to point out that the typical left-wing response to anybody even commenting on this is, why do you care? I care because you put this on the cover of a major national magazine. That's why I care, because you made this a national story. A person making what I believe to be a bad decision for themselves is not a national news story. You made it a national news story. And the reason you did so is specifically so that when we comment on it, when we notice that you are fighting against common sense and, frankly, common decency, when we notice that you are lying to people about the malleability of human sex, when we notice that, you call us bigots. And you say, why are you even noticing? Why do you notice? Why do you notice? We're noticing because you have made this the front line of the culture war. And you want to dictate this to my children. You want to tell my kids that your view of gender and sex is the real view of gender and sex. And you want to call anybody who disagrees a bigot. In other words, this is bait. But if you don't take the bait, then they win. Because if you don't take the bait, then the assumption is that what they are saying has some relation to reality or decency, and it has no relation to either. And so, honestly, I feel terrible for this human being. The reason I feel terrible for this human being is this person obviously has serious problems. Here is a story from July 5th, 2011. Journalist stages her own rape to cure trauma of witnessing sex attack on woman in Haiti. For journalist Mac McClelland, you'll notice that Gabriel Mac and Mac McClelland are the same human. Despite the fact that she had seen the impact of sexual violence all around the globe, having reported from the Congo and Burma, this incident was more than she could take. According to ABC, she became progressively enveloped in the classic symptoms of post-traumatic stress. Avoidance of feelings, flashbacks, recurrent thoughts that triggered crying spells. She couldn't get out of bed in the morning and had nightmares and daymares about rape. The 31-year-old went to see a therapist in her home of San Francisco, and despite getting treatment for PTSD, she told her therapist all she wanted to do was have incredibly violent sex. Her therapist suggested it was a good idea and told her to find someone who she trusted enough to do it. Ms. McClellan believed it was this staged violent rape with a close friend that cured her. She even wrote an article about it for the online magazine Good. In it, she explains how her sexual partner mercilessly pinned her, beat her about the head, and brutally violated her. She wrote about the rape, "I did not enjoy it in a way a person getting screwed normally would, but as it became clear that I could endure it, I started to take deeper breaths, and my mind stayed there, stayed present even when it became painful, even when he smothered me with a pillow, not to asphyxiate me, but so that he didn't break my jaw when he drew his elbow back and slammed his fist into my face 2, 3, 4 times. My body felt devastated but relieved. I had lost but survived. After he climbed off me, he gathered me up in his arms. I broke into 1,000 pieces on his chest, sobbing so hard my ribs felt like they were coming loose. She told ABC I was not crazy. It was a way for me to deal in a sort of simulated but controlled situation. It was still awful, and the body doesn't understand when it's in a fight. So this is a person who was not raped, had PTSD from not her rape, but from witnessing another person's response to a rape, and had a friend simulate rape in which she was beaten. Okay, so this is the person that we are talking about. Does this sound like a mentally ordered person to you, a well-ordered person to you? And this is not to rip on people who have mental disorders. There are people in my family with mental disorders. My grandfather, I've talked about it openly, was a manic depressive who was suicidal from time to time. Okay, so this is not to mock the mentally disordered. This is to point out that when a society treats mental disorders as perfectly healthy behavior, you incentivize mental disorders. And by the way, you don't heal anybody. You don't make anybody better. In fact, in many cases, you make them worse. When you humor mental disorder, you are not making the mental disorder better. My grandfather, who was manic depressive, as I mentioned, right, he had the experience of believing that the radio was talking to him, telling him to kill himself. And for years, my grandmother, who just passed away, my grandmother would lie in bed and tie her foot to his because she knew that if he got up in the middle of the night, he might try to kill himself with a razor. Okay, that is what mental disorders are. To pretend that the radio actually was talking to him and we just needed to humor that would have been cruelty. It wasn't until he got on lithium decades later that he actually began to live a normal life. Treating people who are mentally disordered as though that is a form of mental order and that it's only society that has done something wrong is cruel and nasty. And then to dictate to the rest of the world that the rest of the world is supposed to mirror this perspective is insane, and it promotes insanity. Okay, and this brings us to the New York Magazine cover piece. My penis, myself. I didn't need a penis to be a man, but I needed one to be me. Well, actually, it turns out you're not a man. It turns out you're a biological woman with, as evidenced by your own coverage of the issues, some problems. Okay, and I feel, honest to God, I feel terrible for this person. But to pretend that this person is just a mentally healthy man is ridiculous on every possible level that is possible for it makes a mockery of the word ridiculous to suggest this is ridiculous. Okay, so this brings us to the actual cover story from New York Magazine. Okay. On the day I heard that my penis would be huge, I sobbed. In the car outside the doctor's office afterward, I bent my torso in half and bawled, my face against the dashboard, my boyfriend petting my back to console me but confused. Isn't it good news that they can do it, like, at all? And obviously, yes, it was. Growing up without one, I thought or maybe convinced myself that mine would grow in later, to the extent that when I see a woman in tight pants, I still often instinctively think, where is her penis? But my period at 12 aptly, agonizingly bled to death that increasingly implausible dream of reconciling with life, with God, that he wouldn't make me like this and leave me like this forever. So the news 28 years later that the agony was going to be over, abundantly over, was a bit much to take in. Phalloplasty in general, it was clear, was hard for people to accept. Well, I will love you no matter what, sweetie, a cis female best friend of mine said when I told her I was transitioning years before, as long as you don't get a dick. One flatly demanded, don't get a dick. It was another transmasculine person I used to know said, disgusting, insane to want or to have a surgeon make a sensate phallus out of your arm or leg or somewhere and frankenstitch it to your body, to go so far out of your way to opt into a tool, perhaps the tool, of so much suffering. I love that there are people who are so left-wing that the presence of a penis is itself somehow an act of violence, okay? That penis, Dr. Babak Safa, one of the microsurgeons, said when he came by to see me after, to see us, looks perfect. He was mostly talking about the blood flow. He did not mean that with its fresh stitches and a round bloody hole at the top where the skin would eventually close together, it would look like any other penis at the spa, but also it was a lovely shape. Okay, so are we supposed to believe that this makes you a man? Is that the idea? That this makes you, so according to this person, this didn't make them a man. The feeling made them a man, but they needed the penis in order to feel complete. And then this needed to be put on the cover of New York Magazine to promote the idea that this is a reflection of biological reality, that this person is a man now. Understand, this article is not about Gabriel Mack and this person's experiences in life. This article is about you, because the goal is to make you believe that 2 and 2 are 5. That is the goal. And if you refuse to believe 2 and 2 are 5, this makes you a bigot. This makes you a bad person. This means you will be socially ostracized. This means that common sense must go by the wayside. The demand is not for quote unquote tolerance. The demand is for acceptance and celebration and belief. More than anything else, belief. Radical subjectivism is not the way any functional society can work. Because radical subjectivism eventually, and this is the point in 1984, radical subjectivism eventually will be subjugated in favor of a top-down version of reality that somebody wants to impose. And that top-down version of reality that somebody wants to impose, particularly the folks in the media, is a version of reality that is absolutely contrary to actual biological, physical reality, but allows for the possibility of innate malleability of humanity in any direction that they choose. That's the goal. What this is really about, more than anything else, is getting you, again, to believe 2 and 2 are 5. That's what this is about. We're in a battle for the culture and for our values. Like and subscribe to help keep our videos on the front line of the fight and top of your feed.